Welcome back. We do apologise for that. Let's start again. Essential services like the provision of water and electricity are compromised when municipalities are not run efficiently. KwaZulu-Natal municipalities are not an exception to these challenges. To chat about the difficulties of running a municipality, we are joined by the uMngeni local municipality mayor, Christopher Pappas. Thanks again for your time, Christopher. Maybe just tell us what some of the challenges are. As I mentioned, you have many challenges that municipalities face when it comes to providing basic services such as water and electricity. What's the situation like in KZN?
So I think good evening again. I think the challenges in KZN are not different from many other provinces. But I think what I'd like to do is split those challenges into two things. So the first, those challenges that you can see, and those are the symptoms of poor management. So the potholes and the power outages, the sewer leaks and the water leaks. Those are the symptoms, the things that you see as the residents, as the businesses of a municipality. But then there's the causes of that. Those are the internal failures in the municipality, whether it's the lack of capacity, so your staff who are unskilled or unqualified, or the lack of hard assets to deliver, so your trucks and your tools. And then there's the things that are less sexy, or the things that people are not really focused on. And those are your internal systems and controls. So whether it's regards to finances or policies, whatever it might be. But the things that make any good organization, any good business function and remain stable. So I think those are some of the challenges that we face here in KZN, and I think it doesn't make it any easier when you have unstable municipalities that are sort of fluctuating between 2 or 3 political parties. But yeah, the ramifications of that is what I've called multiple organ failure. So multiple organ failure in itself is when there's some sort of sepsis, there's some sort of infection, and that slowly spreads throughout the body, slowly shutting the whole body down to a point where it can't function. And that's the same with the municipality. If you don't get all the small different components of what makes a municipality work, don't get those right, then slowly the system shuts down and is unable to function. And this then has obviously ramifications on business, on residents, on schools, on the daily lived experience of citizens.
You've just described something rather concerning where, if there's a complete shutdown, there are going to be serious ramifications. Would you say that we have already reached that point? And I ask that in the context of how you've seen municipalities completely deteriorate, not providing or fulfilling its actual mandates of a municipality. Do you think that we're at that stage, or do you think that we're very near to completely shutting down and having municipalities not do what they are supposed to do?
I think in many cases, municipalities have completely shut down and exist only on paper and as per the equitable share that they get. But in terms of actually delivering on a developmental purpose or delivering on their constitutional mandate, no. I think many municipalities don't really exist anymore to do that. And those that are, there are very many of them that are teetering. You look at our neighboring municipality, and many of the functions there are not delivered to the state, and that has severe implications on how the city is run. Now, we are by no means perfect. We've got a lot to do to get right, but there's a starting point, and you address those challenges as opposed to them getting worse and getting weaker. But I also think it exists in pockets. I mean, there are pockets of excellence out there, and we need to learn from each other and draw from each other as local government to try and improve and fix those things. It's, not all hope is lost for local government, but in many, many places, as you've pointed out, it's gone too far to fix in the short term.
What about aging infrastructure? Oftentimes you find municipalities not focusing on the aging infrastructure and just trying to go by maintaining day-to-day issues. And the biggest problem being constant rolling blackouts. That obviously impacts the way municipalities function and operate.
Heidi, I just want to unpack something for us to consider. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with you. There is widespread infrastructure failure. But the way that our municipalities have been drawn up, in other words, the geographic boundaries of municipalities, some municipalities were never made to succeed. You look at many of the rural municipalities here in KZN, and you look at their ability to generate revenue and the limited options that we have as municipalities to generate our own revenue. And then, it's almost setting people up for failure And when you add corruption on that and inefficiencies and skills deficits, then you just make that problem worse. So in the one case, the structure of local government that we have in South Africa in places like KZN is not helping to succeed. But then all the other endemic problems that we have as a country and as a province just exacerbate that and make it a lot worse.
Certainly. So how do we solve all of this? I'm sure revenue also has a big role to play in all of this. You see municipalities underspending, some overspending, some, of course, misappropriating their funds. And, you touch on the issue that some municipalities were built in a way not to survive. And you think about those rural areas where some don't even have clinics or they don't even have basic services. How do we fix this? How do we look at the revenue that has been allocated to these municipalities and say, this is how much we have, this is what we actually need to do to provide these basic services?
Well, let me use my own municipality as an example. So our municipality is 44% rates funded. In other words, 44% of our budget comes from rate-paying residents. The rest comes from conditional grants, our equitable share, and some from services. Now, if you take a municipality, let me say in rural KZN, like a Nongoma, for example, now they have a very, very small rate base, maybe 10 to 15% of what they actually generate. So that municipality has to deliver services for 100% of the people, but only receives funding, or internal funding at least, from a small portion. So we have to look at what national government is giving to us as municipalities to function. One of the smallest allocations from national government in terms of the budget comes to local government. Yet we are the ones who have to deliver the most amount of services. On top of that is when national government or provincial government departments fail, whether it's clinics or SAPs or the SANDF, whoever it is, people look to the municipalities for some sort of reprieve. They say, well, you're the closest level of government. Please help us fight crime. Please help us, with the health issues, whatever it might be. So I think we have to have a fundamental look at how we fund local government from a national and provincial level, but then also enable local governments to do more. So that would be the devolution of more powers down to local government for us to be able to govern more effectively, generate revenue more effectively, and ultimately deliver more effectively.
Certainly, especially given, if you look at what's going on in KZN, and many of the areas are rural areas that don't have basic services. I just can't remember the exact area, but our reporter, Letiwe Mdluli, did a story about how there is no clinic in the rural area. There are no roads, for example. They have to cross a river to get to, if I can call it, civilization. And surely, local government should be in a position to govern these areas and take over these areas and not basically depend on national government to provide a municipality in these areas.
Absolutely, I agree. I think the one proviso I'd add to that is functional local governments. So what you don't want to do is allocate more money or more power to governments that are not delivering or are unable to deliver. I think there needs to be sort of a multi-pronged or a phased approach towards building capacity in municipalities through resource allocation, whether it's money or in kind, and starting to build that capacity to do exactly what you're saying. Build the bridges, all the clinics, run them, assist the schools, whatever it might be. The minister was on now. Public Works, struggles to get to the very rural areas, and to their fault or not, but we have to be able to address those challenges. So yes, in a sense, we need to empower municipalities to do more, but we have to do so in a phased approach. And I think when we speak about the devolution of powers and the devolution of resources, it has to be done responsibly, and it has to be done in a way that will ultimately make sure that the resources are used for the people and not the current situation that we see right now.
Certainly, and just the fact that it's 2023 and people don't have basic services like a clinic, it's just completely unacceptable. But thank you so much for your insights, and we do hope that those in higher powers were watching and take some notes. That was uMngeni Local Municipality Mayor Christopher Pappas.